Cho tới chừng nào bắt đầu có 10 giây. 11 giờ thì chừng nào bắt đầu họ phải thông báo mình biết.
Hello everyone, may I request you to take your seats? We will start the session in another 2 minutes. Alright, good morning everyone and welcome to session 3 of the Young Champions track, a dialogue between new and veteran champions. In the last session, we heard from several of our young folk advocates about the amazing work that they're doing in their own communities, about the challenges they face, and what are some of the needs they have. And I'm absolutely delighted now to have the opportunity to hear from some of our inspiring veteran leaders in the folk space about how they could help us in addressing these needs and challenges that we face. Young people are the future, and if we are talking about working towards a more peaceful future in all of our countries, we need the future to be present. In all of our conversations, in all of our decisions, we need their voices, their active participation, because they are the ones who are going to live out the consequences of the actions that we take today. But at the same time, we as youth need to learn from the experience of those who walked the journey before us, those who have successfully made and impacted the world. And we need you veterans to show us and guide us to continue the struggle that you have started. So on that note, I am so grateful to all our esteemed panelists here who have taken the time to join us today. And just the fact that you are here in the youth track shows how much you value our contribution and our role as youth. So thank you for that. I'm going to quickly highlight some of the needs and challenges that were brought up in the earlier session, and then our speakers will have a few minutes to address it and share their advice. Our young champions said that they look forward to more empowerment of young activists, journalists, lawyers, researchers at the grassroots level more pressure on governments to stop persecution against indigenous groups and religious communities. And another speaker raised the concern that while they are constantly raising the voice against persecution of their communities, but who is actually listening? And as we really hope to have a solid action plan that we can move towards, that we can work towards, I would like to encourage our speakers to keep that in mind while you advise us, and hopefully try to list available resources and opportunities for continued development of our young champions. Each speaker will have about 9 to 10 minutes. We have a timekeeper, Susie, so please watch her cue. And I kindly request the speakers to be conscious of the time and to keep our expected outcome in mind. All right, so to address these needs and challenges, I would now like to invite our first speaker. Our first speaker is Knox Thames, international human rights lawyer, advocate, and author with over 20 years of service in the US government. He's the founder of Christians Against All Persecution, also a senior fellow at the Pepperdine University, and he's most recently known for his book, Ending Persecution, Charting the Path to Global Religious Freedom. So over to you.
Thank you. I will apologize in advance after I speak. I've got to leave to go to another event. But when I was thinking about what to talk about to this Young Leaders track, I was going to focus on ways to equip yourself with the tools that you need to be effective advocates. And there are 4 areas I would encourage all of you young folk, which is younger than me, to consider. First is, if you're in the U.S. in particular, the importance of finishing university and then getting some type of graduate degree, a law degree, a master's, perhaps a PhD. It's an important credential that will open doors and give you the skills, knowledge, and experiences that can position you for the key advocacy job that you want. Secondly, and I think it's important of learning a foreign language. For this group, that may not be a challenge. I recently turned 51, and I think I'm the sort of last generation that can get away without speaking a foreign language. And I think it's a skill that opens lots of doors, that enables you to be an effective advocate, to gain information. I have a colleague on my team at Pepperdine. She's a lawyer, young professional. She's fluent in Spanish. And her language ability has enabled us to do all kinds of really novel engagements with the Organization of American States and Latin America that I couldn't do by myself because I don't speak Spanish. So the idea of equipping yourself with a foreign language. Thirdly is writing. Learn to be an effective writer. If you're doing advocacy work, if you're doing policy work, writing is a really important skill to have. Being able to gather information, synthesize it, package it in a way that can tell policymakers what needs to happen, what's the problem, and provide solutions. When I was at the State Department, you were forced to write in a very tight manner. The font was actually size 14, which eats up tons of space, and you were limited to a page. And so they had like in an email, it's got the subject line, they would call it the bluff. Bottom line up front. And I think that's a really helpful way as you're thinking about, as you're honing your writing skills, as you're advocating, is to tell policymakers, people in positions of authority, what is your bottom line up front? We're here because we need you to urge Vietnam to, or let someone out of jail, or like put that up front, and then have 3 sharp bullet points with the who, what, when, where, and why, demonstrating you have the information, you've gathered it, you've done your homework, you know what's happening, and then you can add the 10-page report after it. But you need that really crisp cover page with the bottom line up front and 3 recommendations. And that's a skill that's really important to learn. And for young professionals, as you're looking for those jobs, take advantage of opportunities to get published. There's blogs everywhere, online journals, in addition to traditional print media. When I was in a hiring position and I would get a stack of resumes, for a junior research position, if someone had a section on the resume that had publications, that immediately put them in a different pile, because that told me they know how to write, and another organization was willing to sort of validate that, right, to put their support behind them and publish what they've written. Now, of course, you don't want to write crazy things because everything exists forever. But early on, getting published and having really sharp writing. Then lastly, events like this, networking. Of course, you want to have the information, convey it concisely, but if you can have allies that can elevate that, can reinforce that, can create a positive echo chamber, that's going to make what you say carry further, farther, faster. In addition, just professionally, for young professionals, it's networks that often get you the job you want. Washington's a big place, but it's also a small town. And so for you all here, I hope you have some business cards, and you should be going up to speakers and saying, "Hi, I'm Knox. I'm in law school. What can I do to get up to where you are?" And people will often take interest in that, and at least share some tips. Interning is another great way to build that professional network and learn the ropes from folks in positions. And my first job out of law school I got because I interned there. And it was a semester-long job interview. I didn't know it at the time. So this idea of networking, super important to put you in the places where you want to be, to have that voice so you can be the advocate that you want. So the four things are advanced degree to train you, learn a foreign language, write sharply and consistently and eloquently, and a network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Knox. I'm going to change the format a bit because Mr. Knox has to leave. So before we go to the other speakers, if there's anyone who wants to ask him any question, please do now.
Do you have any internship position right now?
Internships. I have a blog, a website, knoxtames.com, one word, and I actually wrote an article with a lot of these tips on it, but I also provided links to places, mainly in DC, and of course this is kind of all up in the air right now, but how do you take the foreign service exams into the State Department, or different fellowships for those who are in grad school that create easy on-ramps for federal service, and assuming the funding gets back online, being a contractor is a very easier way to get into a federal government environment without having to apply through usajobs.gov, which is a hassle. And one other tidbit, if you can get a security clearance, if you're an American citizen, that is golden because it opens up so many doors. Because everything's in a classified environment in the government, and if you have that credential, it will travel with you for 5 years, it's top secret, and it can really talk about setting you apart from the pack. So one last story, I had a good buddy, we were both in grad school together, he wanted to do humanitarian assistance. He couldn't find a good job, the job he wanted, so he took a job at the Mint. And he was negotiating contracts with heavy metal mining companies to get like the nickel to make our nickels and the copper to make our pennies. Didn't really like it, but he learned a whole lot about contracts, about negotiations, about government systems, and his next job was at USAID advising the administrator, and he just was the head of World Vision's largest office in Africa. So, your first job is not your last job, so if it's not what you hope to have, take everything you can from it so that you're better equipped to take the jump to something you're going to feel called to do.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Right, our next speaker is Dr. Katrina Lantos. She's the co-chair of the IRF Summit, the president of the Lantos Foundation for Human Rights and Justice, former chair and vice chair of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. Thank you so much for being here and for this wonderful opportunity for young champions like us to meet with each other at a platform like this. And like you mentioned at the roundtable yesterday, we are forming lifelong connections that I'm sure will strengthen our fight for religious freedom in our countries. So thank you for this platform once again, and over to you.
Well, it's always a pleasure for me to participate in any activity organized by Dr. Tang. He brings so much passion and intelligence and insight to the fight for religious freedom, and I consider him a very dear friend, but also somebody who I admire greatly. And so thank you, Dr. Tang, and I'm just so impressed by his determination to focus on the young champions. What our lovely moderator said earlier is so true. You are absolutely the future of this movement. And we are so grateful you're here. We're so grateful for your interest. And hopefully we veterans, and I get it, veteran is a synonym for old people. Hopefully we old people do have some ideas, some thoughts that we can share with you that might help as you try to navigate your way through this very important but somewhat confusing world. Now, my friend Knox, who I had the opportunity to work with when I was at USERF, was really helpful, I think, in giving very concrete, practical things that you personally can do to equip yourselves to be qualified for jobs and for positions in this world. And I think that that was really, really helpful. I'd like to focus, if I may, a little more on the qualities and the things I think you need to bring to the table in terms of the causes and the issues that you want to get engaged with. So I've been thinking about this, and if the first 2 weeks of the Trump administration have taught us anything, I think they have underscored how you can try to use your leverage to get results. Now, obviously, as President of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, still the largest economy, still the largest military, and I'd say still probably the largest cultural influence in the world, President Trump has a lot of leverage. And whether you like him or hate him, we can acknowledge that in these first couple of weeks, he has been demonstrating that he's completely unafraid to use that leverage to the maximum. He is somewhat trampling on diplomatic niceties and the traditional way of doing things. One could certainly describe him as a bull in a china shop. But there is a lesson there. So, you clever people who know how to sniff around on the internet and track down information and be sort of clever Sherlock Holmesian types, you might find out that that minister has a child who's studying at Tufts University or an American university or some other place here in the United States, just trying to get an education, fit in, you know, have the great American experience of being a college student. If you can find a way to get to that family member and, you know, maybe not get to them directly or personally, but find a way to message them and say, did you know that your father is responsible for the imprisonment of this, you know, Buddhist minister who has done nothing wrong? I'm sure this is something that would trouble you. If you can find a way to get text messages to them or DMs. I say DM, but honestly, I don't even know what a DM is. I know it's a direct message, but whenever anybody says, hey, DM me, I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, no way, don't know how to do that. But you guys do. If you can find a way to get at another avenue, not the obvious ones, not the front door, you might be able, in ways that may not be out there in the headlines, it may not make the headlines, but you will know that you've gotten a message through to him from somebody he can't ignore. You have perhaps made him uncomfortable because a family member, someone your age, has said, you know, I'm getting these DMs, or I'm getting reached out to by people who are saying that there's this innocent Buddhist minister who's being placed in prison, is under arrest. is not being permitted to get a visa to come to the United States. These are ways you can think outside the box. And in some ways, you guys are better at it than we veterans are. Because we're used to what we've done before, but you can think of new ways to act. You need to do your research. You need to know your stuff. So you have to have more than just a big heart and a lot of passion. You need to be able to present your case persuasively because you've done the work of knowing the facts and having done your research. And again, with access to the internet, this is something you can do. You don't have to have, big resources at your command. You have to have a good internet connection and a computer. Know your stuff. Don't go in half-baked. And finally, I guess, I see I only have a minute left. This relates to what Knox was saying about networking. Build relationships. You do not know who will be the person who can unlock a door for you. Now, it may be for a very personal goal. You don't know who the person is going to be, who can connect you to someone, who can get you that job interview and put you in a position to be doing what you care about. Or you don't know who the person is who will know someone, who will have a connection or an idea that will help you better advocate on behalf of the cause that you've undertaken. So relationships are incredibly important. They're important personally, they're important professionally, and they're important in enabling you to achieve your goals. So I'll stop there and look forward to questions as the panel continues.
Thank you so much. Those are very practical suggestions, and I'm sure our young champions will highly benefit from it. Our next speaker is Ambassador Robert Rehak, Chair of UFBA, or Article 18 Alliance, Ambassador and Special Envoy for Holocaust, Interfaith Dialogue and Freedom of Religion from Czech Republic. Ambassador Rehak has been instrumental in getting the Young Forum Advocates movement started, and we're so grateful to you for that. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm known for my jokes.
Bad jokes.
Bad jokes.
We're friends, but...
If you heard, I'm from Czech Republic, and right now the situation in Central Europe is very difficult because of the wars going on. So I will start with a joke that speaks a lot about the nature. The joke goes like that. If you want to live in France, what do? You go just to France. If you want to live in Germany, you just go to Germany. If you want to live in Russia, you don't need to do anything. Russia is coming to you. So my position for this panel will be a few good advice from my life under the totalitarian regime, because we live in very complicated times, and some of the skills that we got through the time behind the Iron Curtain are now very useful, because in many countries still we face the totalitarian regimes. And also the society and the environment that we live in, some people might find difficult to cope with, and in kind of development of the AI, it can be that even the people here in the United States will feel that they are under some digital totalitarianism, under surveillance 24/7, all the communication is scanned, and so on. So we need to develop and learn from those who passed through such an experience like communist regime in my country, that in that time known Czechoslovakia. So first of all, my advice for young people is find your teacher. As Katarina said, it's very important, the personal relation. We live in social media. My children, they have a lot of friends, but there are no real friends on Facebook, right? Like it calls friends, but it's not real friendship. You need real connection to real person. And as a teacher, I'm also a professor like Katarina, I think the personal relation is irreplaceable with anything else. And if you are a young person, it's good to find your teacher, somebody that you can be your mentor. You can, and it should be a person with good moral values. For me, the moral values are crucial. If I choose to cooperate with somebody and I know he's just smart, but he has no moral values, I don't want to work. That's why I work with people like Dr. Tan or my esteemed advisor David Burrow and other people. So another thing, if you would ask the student in Great Britain how long time will take to learn Japanese, he would say probably 2 years. If you would ask the people in France or here, maybe they would say 1 year. If you would ask the students in my country, they would say, do you have notes for it? So 2-3 days. There isn't, like the students want to have everything and quickly, and there is you need patience. And also, like, to be able to overcome a difficult situation and frustration. We live in an age of uncertainty, which causes really like fear. To cope with it, you need to build inner resilience, including to learn how to cope with fear, stress, and also frustration. It's very important. I just had a very fresh experience in my position as a chair of the International Alliance for Freedom or of Religious Freedom. We call it right now the Article 18 Alliance. I was advocating 1 year for a guy in prison in Cuba. His name was Pastor Lorenzo. After a year of campaign, that I made even video with his wife, who came to me to Prague, I succeeded. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Great Britain wrote an open letter to Pastor Lorenzo, which was great success. So one person in prison gets the open letter of support from a Minister of Foreign Affairs. What's happened? The regime put him into a worse prison than before. Frustration. After a year of campaign, disappointment, and I had to handle this disappointment only with wish that we did our best. We tried our best, which counts. After that came a message to my WhatsApp, and his wife sent me, I'm going to pick up Pastor Lorenzo from prison, and suddenly he was released. And I received fantastic video from Murph, who is sitting there, who sent me the private video of his wife, where you can see the children, like Pastor Lorenzo is leaving the prison, and the children are coming and hugging him and are chanting because of this picture. If I would not be able to overcome the frustration, we could not achieve anything. But Troyan, who was sitting years in prison, if he would resign, say, I don't have power anymore, he would probably die or start to be sick in the prison, not survive. He survived, he was released, and I was invited to his symbolic wedding in Prague, when he arrived to Prague. So, the resilience against the fear, frustration, and stress is connected also to the physical resilience. So that's why I try to do every day some push-ups, be in the nature, cycling, try to, if I have an easy way or more difficult, I choose always more difficult. Because we will need to increase our resilience, also physical resilience, much more, because the times that we are facing are really very difficult. But on the end, we will win. I will never lose the hope and sense of humor. Yes, I like that Katrina yesterday quoted a very nice quote by a Jewish author. So I would like also to quote the writer Elie Wiesel, who said that the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. So I would like to thank you that you are not being indifferent, and I hope that if you are not being indifferent, you will always find your way how to help the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and thank you so much for highlighting that we need to keep hope, because hope is resistance. If we stop hoping, we've already given up and we lose the battle. So keep hoping. Our next speaker is Esther Parr, Coordinator of Research and Advocacy at Chin Association of Maryland. And since the 2021 military coup in Burma, Esther has been advocating against religious persecution and supporting refugees who fled to Mizoram in India. Thank you so much, Esther, for being here. Over to you.
Thank you. Wow, I am so inspired by the previous speakers, and I don't even know if I'm worthy to be here, to be sitting with them here. I am relatively new in this field, and it hasn't been long since I myself have become a leader, so it's really nerve-wracking, but I got so inspired. And if you were to ask me to describe a leader in one word, or let's just say one word, I will say more. Because as a leader, there are times we need to be more courageous, right? There are times we need to speak up more than the people that we lead. And just like that, sometimes we have to just sit and listen more, and just sit and watch more. So we gotta do more of everything. And as someone who went to be a leader, that is something that have to be something that start from when you are preparing to be a leader. Because leadership, and when you get into that position, it's not something like your characteristic and everything else that come with you. It's not something that you get after you become the leader. It's a whole process. It's a continuous process, and something that you learn as you go more. And so what I want to make sure that I do for myself is to do more all the time. If I have to do more work, I do more work. If I have to stay up late to write a research paper, I do so. And I do that with a grateful heart, and I always thank the Lord for giving me the opportunity. And that would be my first point. And my second point is that in order to become a good leader, you have to be a good follower first. When I say good follower, that it is right that sometimes we might not agree with what our leaders want to do. Obviously, we all have different characteristics, and we all have different perspectives. But as a good follower, it is good to listen, take it in, and just see, my leader is leading me like this, and I am not happy with it. So when I become a good leader, or when I become a leader myself, what can I change in that? And what can I take from this leadership style? And what can I apply to my leadership when I become one? So that would be my second point, is to be a good follower first. And my third point is opportunities. Opportunity is knocking at your door, but it's not going to come in forcefully. It will just be at the door, or sometimes you have to run the extra mile to meet where the opportunity is at. And you got to open that door. And when opportunity knock on the door, I know sometimes it's hard. Especially for me sitting here today with all of these amazing speakers and leaders. I was so nervous when I look at the speaker bio. I'm like, am I worth to be sitting here with them? Can I really do this? But what I say is that if I don't take this opportunity, something like this might never come. It could be once in a lifetime chance. So that is the very reason why I sit in this spot, even though I feel embarrassed, shy, discouraged, and because I can't say the thing that they tell you, and I don't have the same experience as them, but I would like to take this opportunity for me to grow as a leader and grow as a speaker. And so opportunity, sometimes you have to just open the door or sometimes you just have to search it on Google. Like it's so easy, it's just one search. And like these days we have ChatGPT and everything's around us, so even if Google can't tell you, just ChatGPT it, right? And it will tell you a lot of things that you need to know. But just like that, because we have everything so easy at the doorstep, sometimes we become so sensitive to the people around us, sensitive to the opportunity. And we don't like, especially this generation, we don't like being in a discomfort situation, and that's hard. But we just have to go for it if we want to be a good leader, if we want to be in front of other people, if we want to be that person, we have to take the opportunity, do the extra mile to become that person that we wanted to be. And last but not least, I think being respectful to other people and to yourself is really important. If you don't respect other people, other culture, I think you can't really expect people to respect you if you don't respect them. And we live in a world where, especially in the USA, we get exposed to so many different cultures, and sometimes it's so easy to put yourself first. And the world is always teaching us how we need to put ourselves first. But as a leader, sometimes you gotta put other people first. And as we see in the Bible, I'm a Christian, and as we see in the Bible, if we want to be a leader, we need to become the servant first. So being respectful to other people, your leader is really important. And at the same time, just like that, you need to respect yourself and the work that you do. If you don't respect what you do or yourself, it is very hard for other people to respect you. So I would just like to point out my 4 point again. Being a leader is doing more. In order to become a good leader, you need to be a good follower first. And when opportunity knock on your door, open the door. Or if it's 1 mile away from you, take that extra mile and have respect for others and for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. And I have to say you are as much an inspiration to all of us, like all our other speakers here. Thank you for the work you do. Our next speaker is Bailey Morton, Senior Program Associate at Freedom House. Bailey has been working on Freedom House's Protecting Belief Fund, where he provides emergency assistance to people targeted due to their religious beliefs in the Middle East and Africa. Over to you.
Hi. This is actually my first panel that I've ever been on, so I do feel humbled, especially to be here with attorneys, doctors, ambassadors, activists, and advocates. I am really none of those things, and I don't know that I would consider myself a leader in the field necessarily. But I do work in this field, and I provide a valuable service where I provide financial assistance to people targeted due to their beliefs, including people who've been featured by whose cases have been featured by the Earth Conference. My program is funded through foreign assistance, and we have been affected by the foreign assistance freeze, so hopefully I'm able to continue to do this work. I guess what I can provide here is practical advice about how to break into the field and how to be someone who works in international religious freedom. I think a lot of the advice that Knox Thames gave is very good and mirrors my own experience. I was an undergrad, I studied religious freedom, sorry, not religious freedom, I studied religious studies, comparative religious studies, at the University of Mississippi. Not because I thought I would work in this field, I didn't, just because it spoke to me and I found it interesting. I also studied Arabic, and then I did a master's at the American University in Cairo in Middle Eastern Studies. And really these are the things that allowed me to break into the field, right? Having a master's degree set me out from other candidates applying for the role. Speaking a foreign language helped me stand out. And even having the liberal arts degree that my parents were very worried about me taking, I have to say, you know, I've done liberal arts my entire career, and I've found a job in field working on religious freedom in the Middle East, and I've been very, very fortunate to do so, and to be honest, I thank Providence for it. So yeah, I think that learning a foreign language is good advice, getting a higher education degree is good advice, following your passions. I'd encourage everyone to read both widely and deeply about subjects in both in religious freedom, but also just any subject matter that you're interested in. Over time, you will build expertise and competency talking about this stuff if you do that. I'd encourage humility. I think people need to be open to changing their opinions, especially when confronted by evidence. And that doing so will serve you both in your career and in your life. And I think I didn't do internships. My parents came from a generation where you went home and worked in between college semesters, and I did that. And to be honest, I was not well served by that. I would recommend doing internships. I'd recommend getting mentors. There are people who are older than you and more senior than you in their careers who are happy to help someone who's young and hungry break in and give them advice. I still email old professors and if you build a network, it can help you get employed, it can give you advice, and it can push you in the right directions. So that's really my advice is to be intellectually open, to learn a foreign language, if you can study abroad or have experience abroad, maybe do a higher education degree, like a graduate level degree if you're having trouble finding a job initially. And I can just say that it is possible. You don't need to be an ambassador necessarily, or get a PhD, or be an attorney to break into this field. You can do so being a normal person who is just dedicated to it.
Thank you very much, Bailey, for ending that on a very encouraging note. We will now have some time for questions.
I just wanted to ask, you said you don't need to be ambassador, you can be just normal person. No, I'm sure.
Well, while we're waiting for a question, since Ambassador Ray Hack took advantage of you being a captive audience to tell a joke, I'm going to tell a really bad joke. This one has nothing whatsoever to do with our subject, but it's one of my favorites because at my advanced age, it's one of the few jokes I can remember. What do you call a cow who is giving birth? Decaffeinated.
I'm happy that you were able to help. I mean, it really is something that I'm very proud of. Sometimes I say that if I get to the gates of St. Peter's, my day job is doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Any questions?
I don't have a question. I would like to just thank you.
Hold on, we'll just pass the mic to you.
I just want to remind everyone we need to use the mics, otherwise people in the live stream they don't hear you.
As also an elder in Vietnamese community, I would like to thank you to see that at the table. First, when Dr. Lantos said, I see through what you said, you are giving advice, but in behind I see a person, a young person who has all the qualities to be a good person, to get what you said. And to Ambassador too, you give the tools of being resilient, which Vietnamese people are very good for. Until Esther and Bailey, I think that you have complete a set of tools and values that equip young people but not just that, but with a lot of love from elders. So I just want to remark that, to say that what I heard here is not only advice and good experience or something, but also a lot of love. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy New Year. Happy Lunar New Year. I have something to share. My own experience representing community I have met with Katrina many times. Ambassador Rebecca, and I just want to share with you, this is my third time being here. You mentioned the word hope. Hope. Young champion. Thank you very much.
So we pass the mic to Patrice, I think she has a question.
I do have a question if it's the floor is open. Something that we're struggling with as an organization, we have a lot of people who have offered to be mentors, and we have a lot of people who have indicated an interest in having mentors. And we've struggled figuring out how to connect them. So I'm wondering if you all have ideas about how to do that. I mean, it's like, I kind of joke that we need like a Tinder app where you can like right and left swipe like potential mentors to match people. But any ideas about how that, and like just how to establish an effective mentoring relationship? Because that's something that I really see the need for in this movement, is to connect that intergenerational wisdom. But actually doing the job turns out to be more difficult than I realized.
I mentioned that I also teach students, so I'm also responsible for education of new diplomats coming to the State Department or Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we developed the mentorship program there too. I have to admit that not everybody who wants to be mentor can be good mentor. So I wouldn't open the application that everybody can sign up and become mentor, because it can be quite dangerous. So my approach would be like, maybe we can think in the frame of our alliance to connect the program, that we have to check up the people who can be mentors, and also to check up the people who wants to have mentors, and see who could fit together. But I know that you are very capable to organize a huge number of those students, but I think those things are rather in small numbers. Like, you know, I like this session because it's a small session. It's not a hall for 2,000 people. We can speak together, we can see each other, we can react. And I think the mentorship is about personal approach. So I would really recommend to do rather a smaller number, but very personal, than to open program for 1,000 people that in some application they can just connect. I don't believe it.
I think that's good advice. The other thing I would say, Patrice, is you don't know who is going to be a good match. So let's say you have 10 people who said, yeah, I really want to be a mentor, and however many that are interested in finding a mentor. I would suggest setting up sort of a small Zoom session of a half hour, 40 minutes, in which the mentor, will do a presentation, will talk about some, their area of expertise, what it is they know, what it is they care about. And the people who participate as listeners and then question askers, it gives them the chance to decide, does this person actually resonate with me or not? Instead of sort of saying, hey, we're going to connect you with this mentee, this mentor with this mentee, because that's a little bit like an arranged marriage. And sometimes they work out, but often that takes many, many years. And the mentor-mentee don't want to take all that time. So You know, I think you mentioned, Rob, and this is certainly the case for me, I teach at Tufts University, and I have definitely become a mentor to so many of my students who just continually reach out. What do you think I should do? Is this the right direction for me to go? Will you write a letter of recommendation? Can you know, those kinds of really practical forms of mentorship. And it came about because they were my students, because they had the chance to be in my class, to ask questions, to hear my lectures, you know, all of that happened naturally and organically. Well, through Zoom, you can create a kind of a replica of that. It's not the same thing, it's not gonna last for a semester, but if that's a big piece of what you wanna do, organize a few, you know, Zoom sessions. And maybe you have several of the potential mentors, each talking for 5 or 8 minutes about what it is they do, what they hope to encourage young people to get engaged with, and you can have dialogue back and forth. And then afterwards, you sort of communicate with the young people who were in that session and sort of say, hey, you know, if one of those people you heard speak really clicked with you, they're open to being reached out to for mentorship. So try it in a way, recreate the classroom dynamic using Zoom in a shorter and a somewhat truncated format. But that's one thought I have.
Like speed dating.
That's right, like speed dating.
Excuse me, that one question here I would ask you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of your insightful contributions. My name is also Esther, from the United Kingdom. I'm a human rights lawyer. So the question I have is, much of our work requires funding. So what challenges have you had in trying to source funding for your work, and what advice can you give us for those of us who are trying to source funding in order to do the work that we really want to do and are passionate about?
That's the single most difficult thing I think that anybody who runs a nonprofit, an NGO faces. And even really big sort of legacy organizations like Freedom House have that as a constant pressure because, you know, they're big and so they have a larger staff and they need more resources. I don't know of anybody in the nonprofit world who doesn't struggle with just that question. I have two thoughts because there really are, well, I suppose there are 3 basic routes for funding. One is if you can get government funding. Right now in this country, that is, I think, going to become more and more difficult. We have an administration that prides itself on being a disruptor, and I think you referenced that the foreign aid pause, the USAID pause, and just the program aid in general pause has already impacted even as distinguished and well-respected and long-lasting organization as Freedom House. But so government funding is fantastic, but if you become dependent upon it, then you are very, very vulnerable. And I'll say that the Lantos Foundation that I'm president of and the Earth Summit have actually never accepted a penny of government funding. I would accept it if they offered. I don't want to act as though that's some sort of moral position, but that's just nothing we've ever had. So what are the other sources? It's fantastic if you can find 1 or 2 or a small handful of significant donors who have catch the vision of what it is you're trying to do, who will give you sort of the baseline support that you need to keep the doors open, to pay your salary, to fund sort of that basic, your basic requirements just for being able to move forward week to week. And that requires cultivating relationships and networking. But those kinds of significant major donors can make the difference between, really every day feeling like it's hand to mouth versus having a degree of confidence under you. And then you want to build a donor base. You want to use the availability of the internet, of donor lists, of organizational lists to try and build up a small donor base as well. Because that kind of fills in and supplements the gap. A third, or I guess by now I'm up to a fourth option, is getting grants from private foundations. So if you're working in a particular space, do your research, go on. One of the kind of aggregating websites in this country is Catalyst, which has lists of all the different sort of organizations that are doing activist work. Apply for grants. It's time consuming and it's often frustrating because you put a lot of time and effort into writing a grant and most of them you won't get. But if you do get a grant from a sizable foundation and you do a good job, the chances are they'll renew it. I'll give you one example from the Lantos Foundation, and this is a small grant, but we wanted to start an activist artist scholarship program for young champions, for seniors in high school who were getting ready to go to college. And we wanted them to either create an original piece of activist art focused on a human rights issue, or find an existing piece of activist art that they would then write a human rights focused essay on. And the idea was, get them engaged, interested in human rights, and we were able to get a grant from a local bank to fund these scholarships, and we give out 4 a year. And now I think we're getting up to about our 5th year, so they were pleased with the program. And so the big hill was getting the funding the first time, but because you've done a good job, and sometimes you can go to businesses as opposed to an actual foundation, because they want to be good citizens in the community, and you present your program or your organization, and you may be able to get support that way as well. And then I guess those are some ideas. And maybe if you can come up with the world's cutest, cleverest t-shirt that everybody wants to buy and sell 50,000 of them, then you're all set.
That's good.
I think we're about out of time, so I'll be very brief with my remarks. First of all, I'm Katrina Lantos Sweat's husband, and it's nice to be here with all of you, and I enjoy following after my wife at these wonderful events that she puts together with Sam Brownback.
We share 7 children and 16 grandchildren.
Like my wife, I believe strongly in the effects of storytelling when it comes to talking about various topics. I wrote a book on leadership, but I won't go into that. But the story I wanted to share with you all was one that actually happened to us when I first got elected to Congress at the age of 33. I received a letter from a 16-year-old from Nigeria. And we all know about letters from Nigeria or emails now from Nigeria where they ask you if you'll open your bank account, they can put millions of dollars into it, and then they'll thank you after they've drained all your money out of your account. But something told me that this letter was a legitimate letter. It was not one of these scams. And in the letter, the 16-year-old, whose name was Lucky, was just congratulating me on my victory and making my first ascent into Congress in the United States. And it just ended at that. And something told me that I should write back to him. And I think it was the spirit that touched me. And I wrote back to him. And we started to establish a pen pal relationship. There were no computers then. So we wrote back and forth, and I got to know him very well. And as I said, I don't have a lot of time, and there was a lot that went into this. But over the years, we ended up putting him through college, and he rose to become the president of the Hospital Association's financial officers for the state hospitals in Nigeria. And now he runs a 100-acre palm oil farm. And all of this was through this relationship that he initiated by writing me the simple handwritten letter back in 1990 when I first entered the U.S. Congress. And I tell you that because for all of you who are individuals or who are directors or executive directors of young and exciting but difficult NGOs that are looking for relationships and looking for money and looking to employ all of the wonderful advice that you've received, I just want to leave that thought with you that an individual that has the courage and the confidence to write, not necessarily asking for something, but establishing that relationship, I think is a very, very important first step that all of you have or must take if you're going to realize success in the work that you're doing. And to this day, Lucky is still a member of our family. He has come and celebrated weddings of our 7 children. And he is a prosperous young man employing 30 people in Nigeria. And all of that has come from this wonderful relationship. And I encourage all of you to reach in and have the kind of success that Lucky has demonstrated, not because he's lucky, but because he worked hard at it and understood that that's the process that's necessary for success.
Be sure to write your Congress.
Can we have one last person for the lady here? She's been waiting. Here.
Hi, my name is Anna. I'm one of the young leaders. I'm based in the UK and working with CSW. And a very practical question. Basically, like coming out of like doing an internship and looking for jobs, the job market is so competitive, especially in the NGO sphere, and even having a master's speaking a language isn't always something that can set you apart from other people. So I suppose my question is, if you're looking at a CV and you're looking for what's kind of one thing you're like, oh, that really captivates me and makes me like set you apart from everyone else, or is there an example of something you have read and you're like, wow, like I really want to employ this person? Like what makes you kind of stand out from everyone else?
I just want to say that I do work with CSW, and they do very good work.
Very important is not to have just one CV that you send to everybody, but to read very carefully the thoughts behind this grant project or organizations that you are into. Because if you understand what's their point, what they are looking for, you can always adjust all your outcomes exactly to that purpose. Also, Esther asked for the grant application or resources. The same with the grant applications. You should really deep understand to whom you are writing and adjust even your goals according what the organization is following. Then it clicks together and works. For me personally, I received a lot of CVs, and I'm a little bit allergic to this. Now I can be a little bit, let's say, not polite, but sometimes American style, that the person is the perfect candidate for the best candidate for this job from all other candidates, and they write it into the CV. So if I see such a really person that thinks about himself or herself, this is the perfect, the perfectly fitting this, I put it a little bit to the side, because you mentioned that you feel not like eligible to sit with us. This is the best approach. When they ask me if I can accept the role of the chair, I said I'm not eligible. And it's because you said that, you are eligible. Because you have some kind of self-criticism, to be shy, not to think that you are the master of the world, it's a good approach. So I appreciate that. And also, mistake of a lot of young people is that they just don't dedicate enough time to those things. Like they write it very quickly, the CV, or with a lot of mistakes even in the grammar. This is also that distract me. if I see that the person put a lot of energy and effort to make it really good, with no mistakes, and really like detailed, then I take it much more seriously.
I think that's really good advice, and you know, you asked what would make a CV stand out. I think in the kind of space we're talking about, and I wouldn't recommend this for a regular business or law firm or something like that, but if it is an NGO that, you know, is somehow got a greater mission than just how much money can we make, how many clients can we bill, you know, for our billable hours. Something that would make a CV stand out for me is if at the top there was just a little quotation that related to the mission of the organization. I know I would say, oh, I would just pause and I would probably put that right away in the pile of something I wanted to look at more closely, because it would just say to me that that individual understood that we were about more than just the rat race of, you know, can I get the job? And again, I think that would only work for certain kinds of job applications, but to me it would. I would pull that out. It would catch my attention.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry we're out of time, but thank you for this very vibrant and interactive session, and especially grateful to all the speakers for your valuable advice. Thank you so much.
I was hoping you wouldn't mind going around.
We don't connected with those.
Remember, and I was gonna ask this, but then I thought time is up. I should have asked because actually I think many people want to know school, like how you actually. I don't know, like they come. I meet some people like what they have legal matters, stating in legal defense, but not like I think if someone has been charged with something, they should all know where it's. And it can help with that.